Akpabli. He is in 2010-2011. Kofi Akpabli was voted the CNN Multi-Choice African Journalist for Arts and Culture, making him the only African to have won that CNN award back-to-back. And then in also August 2010, Mr. Akpabli also won the Ghana Journalists Association's Best Reporter for Arts and Culture and Tourism and Entertainment. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
On my far right, we have Dr. Gesika Agambila. Dr. Gesika Adombiri. I hope I got the pronunciation right.
It's all right. It's all right.
Is an author of a novel titled Journey. He also has, to his credit, a collection of short stories for children. One particular one is Salma, the Tales from Northern Ghana. He also served as a Deputy Minister of State in the Ministries of Finance and Economic Planning, Harbour and Railways, and then also Environment and Science. And these are the two gentlemen who've joined me this morning for this discussion. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Martin. And good morning, and we say good morning to your listeners.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
But you didn't mention that both of us are members of the Ghana Association of Writers.
Of Writers?
Yes.
Ghana Association of Writers.
He's actually the Vice President.
Okay, lots of apologies for that. And I think that actually brings us to the reason for this interview, which is that we want to find out whether we are writing as a nation. Do we have enough writers? And then also, are we a reading nation? Have we now developed that culture of reading? Certainly, both of you have been writing for several years. Dr. Gambile, let me start with you. You, over the years, may have monitored and read and heard things about the reading culture of Ghana. Has it improved?
Well, I mean, Ghanaians have been reading over the years and also writing over the years. We've had noted writers from the pre-colonial period through the immediate post-independence period to the present time. In the past, we've had writers like Mensa Saba, Kopina Sechi, who wrote The Blinkards. And then in the immediate post-independence period, we've had writers like Atukwe Okai, Ayikwe Ama, Ama Taedu, and others. And so Ghanaians have read most of this work. As to whether we have a reading culture, the general feeling is that we're not reading as much as we used to. And the question then has to be why. Things have changed in my lifetime. When I was a child, there was a library I could go to read. My school had a library, and when I went back to my hometown of Bolga, there was a library I could go there to read. The libraries now are depleted of books.
Okay.
And of course, there are other distractions that didn't exist in that time.
But what was the cause of the depletion of libraries? Because I still know of at least 2-3 libraries, though the books there are several years old. But why do you think there isn't even that interest of wanting to?
But you see, a library is a public good. In other words, something that is provided for the benefit of many, and which it is not in the interest of one individual to provide. So a library, a bridge, airport, roads, they are public goods.
Okay.
And public goods can only be properly provided by government. So we have to find out why, to what extent government is investing in libraries in recent years. And whether government is investing in books and other policies that may discourage the industry of writing. For instance, the inputs, the printing of books, ink and paper, are they taxed or they are not taxed when they come into the country? And does that raise the cost of books and access to them?
Okay.
And all of these factors, I think.
Kofi, do you share the same?
Yeah, I would like to tag in at the point of the libraries. We're at Kanda now. Can you tell me the nearest public library?
Okay. That should be probably somewhere in the center part of Accra.
So, in addition to the fact that the libraries are not well resourced, they are not attractive enough. Okay, just as the gym is attractive these days, the mall is attractive these days. We can make libraries attractive if we want to, because if a child sees his parents go to the library once a week or once a month, that's a value that child is also picking. if a child sees, or a worker sees his boss, goes to the public library to borrow a book, goes to the public library to return a book he has enjoyed, that's a value.
Can we, isn't that a little too old, the system of having to go to that facility called a library to sit there and read, or pick a book and come home and read? We're in 2016. Are there alternatives of also consuming content written and not necessarily going to the library? Because now people have libraries in their homes and all of that.
Well,
Maybe Kofi was going to take that.
It's called a public library. Okay, the fact that there's a restaurant doesn't mean you can't. The fact that you eat at home doesn't mean the restaurant has lost its value.
Okay.
Okay, so we have other forms of consuming literary works. Even the mobile phone is one, for instance. But that doesn't diminish the value of a public good such as the library, because that is where the whole space is devoted to reading materials. And if you are the type who is into ebooks, well, you could still go to library with ebook facilities. I don't know about the library that you are conversant with, whether they have facilities for ebooks. But the point is, if we really want to take the reading culture up there, then we should leave the traditional corporates alone and then look at outlets such as the library, the bookshops, for instance. If you just sell books and you do not create events, you don't raise awareness, you don't bring people into the space to show how pleasurable reading can be, you're not doing yourself good.
I have met a number of people who are quite interested in wanting to read. I mean, anytime you meet them, like, I have to read, and normally even part of their yearly resolutions, I have to finish 3 books this year or 4 books this year.
Or losing weight, huh?
Yes, just like that. And before the year ends, they realize they have not been able to achieve that. Why do you think there still isn't that urge? And why isn't that urge to want to consume literary works growing?
Well, you know, whatever you do as a grown-up, you learn to do it when you were a child. So we must ask the question, what are we doing to engender interest in reading among children? We have football fields in all the schools, right? So we're investing in football. But do we have libraries in all the schools? Do we encourage our children to read? Just like maybe we sit down in front of the TV and watch football, encouraging our children to watch football, but do we read to encourage the children? When you look at our educational institutions, are there programs of reading? Are there prizes for reading? Are there prizes for writing? As Kofi said, the publishers and the bookshops, what are they doing to promote reading? All of these things, they need to be promoted. And I think that we need to ask the questions, what efforts are we putting into these things? And I think that developing good habits, reading habits from childhood is very important. And if we don't do that, then we don't expect grown-ups to really be interested in reading. Then reading becomes a chore.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, you know, readers have to find time to read. You're not going to get 2 hours to read. You know, the times when you are not busy. For instance, somebody once said that they went to the University of Ghana at the beginning of the semester. People were in a line, a queue. And in fact, the Ghanaian students were on their mobile phones and chatting, and the foreign students were the ones reading books. So you see, we you know, when you go to, sometimes you travel on the bus, and you see that it's the foreigners who are reading, and the Ghanaians are on the phones and listen to music. We are not developed that culture. But I think that reading is critical to national development, because all the wisdom, all the knowledge of the world is in books. If you don't read and all you do is watch TV and chat on the phone, I mean, what knowledge are you going to acquire?
And I think one way that I have realized we want to encourage the art of reading is by creating reading clubs, which Kofi, I know, has you know, undertaken at least 1 or 2 of such. Kofi, that and what else can we do to, you know, encourage the art of reading?
Well, let me just say that it begins from the home. So parents, if you want your children to read, you yourself must be seen reading. Your child should see you enjoying what you're reading. We should also ensure that our students are not just engrossed in their textbooks. Okay, that's reading, but that just limits them to a subject area.
Okay.
Okay, so teachers, mentor, those who are mentoring, as you engage with your charges, find out from them. I normally do that. What book are you reading now? And I expect to hear the title of a novel, not a motivational book.
Okay, yes.
You understand?
And that brings to mind the types of reading, or types of reading that there are. If someone reads newspapers on a daily basis, I mean, can read 3 of the major newspapers in the country cover to cover, does that also constitute reading?
Well, that's reading, but that's taking in the news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
You could also read within an industry if you are oriented in that industry, career-wise. You could also read for religious purposes, so that you are more edified in whatever religion you are. So all these are reading, but we are also talking about reading for pleasure.
Yeah. In the past, there was a magazine called Talent for Tomorrow, which was focused on senior high schools or secondary schools, we used to call them in those days. The Ghana Association of Writers, together with GES, has now established a program to establish literary clubs in all the senior high schools. It's called the GAUSOP, Ghana Association of Writers Schools Outreach Program. And we're also trying to have the same relationships with some of the universities. For instance, next week we're visiting the University of Ghana and also AUCC. It is important that the schools have the literary clubs where students will meet to read and to write.
Yeah.
And I think that it is important that Ghanaians be rounded and not just be focused narrowly on learning a subject and passing it. In the past, a lot of our leaders, people who are in medicine, Professor Eastman, for instance, was a writer. You know, so I mean, people were rounded, and so we need people who are rounded, not just people who focus on passing an exam. It's not going to lead us to
And if I may come in here, if you enter the consulting room of a medical doctor, okay, and that medical doctor is someone who is well read, you are safe. Because he understands humanity, he understands the society within which his patient is coming from. Okay, if you are dealing with a lawyer, an accountant who is well read, you know that you are safer than someone, a professional who just knows about his engineering or whatever.
So well read here is being defined by not just the content in your field.
No, not at all.
Across board.
Yes. So when the person mentions his name, you have a sense of the kind of person he can be.
Okay.
You understand? And that allows you to engage that person better and deliver service better.
What is the Ghana Association of Writers doing? Do you have maybe a timetable of how you can, inculcate, especially in younger children, the art?
Well, we wish we had the resources to have literary clubs at the junior high school level, but because of resource constraint, because we are a voluntary organization, okay. We have decided that we'll focus only on the senior high schools, but it is important. The foundation is important. The foundation starts with primary school, but we have not been able to take our efforts to that level. But that is what is important, and maybe other people can get involved. The publishers, Ministry of Education, parents. It's a three-legged stool. It requires participation from different sectors to make it successful.
Yeah, Martin, you mentioned the book clubs. What we have done really on our own is not reading clubs, but it's public reading. Since December, I've done 3 public readings with a colleague writer, Nana Redamon. Okay, so all we do is to find a location. The last time we did it at ANC Mall. There's a new Citrix bookshop. So the woman allowed us space in her bookshop, and the room was packed. People came.
So I mean, the interest to want to read is there.
It's coming. People came just to sit down and to be read to, and many of them were first timers, and they were like, they didn't know that you could just sit down and be read to and enjoy it.
How do you
it
understand this? You get, so how does it work? People who have time come sit down and
Yeah.
then it is read to them.
Yeah, you read.
How different is that from reading myself?
Well, but I think
In the public
you were
space.
reading your own writing too, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but sometimes we read other writers too.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Because the last time we read Professor Kwesi Anka, we also read Amata Edu.
So that's how it
So
works.
so you just select pieces from works that are interesting, that the audience can relate to, and then there are breaks where they come in to ask questions.
Oh.
Or in fact, the last one, someone actually volunteered to also read, so we invited him. He came up, said Rodney Boateng. He came, did some reading, and then it's moderated. So, and there are people who keep coming wherever we do a reading. They are there.
I think I'll be at the next time.
And so I asked myself, wow. So the person, because the person has read all my books, but the person still follows just to sit and hear us read. So that's a movement for you.
Yeah. And the Goethe Institute used to have readings. I don't know if they still have that program.
Yeah, they still do last Wednesdays of every month.
Okay.
At their institute.
And how about audiobooks? Maybe while driving, you're listening to audiobooks.
Well,
could
that
be
has its place.
But do our writers now have audiobooks? Are they venturing into that as well?
It's not.
I don't think it's a big thing.
It's
now.
not a big.
Yes.
It's not something I'm talking as a writer, we are investing in. It's not something we are investing in.
Maybe you should start, Kofi, because then you can read and with all the emotions that you wrote the book with. So when someone is listening, just like sitting at the reading club, the person can enjoy it on the go.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah, it is a good thing because in countries where people spend a lot of time on the road, people like to have audiobooks,
Right.
so that they can listen whilst they drive, because you can't read whilst you drive.
Yes.
So I think.
But the best advice would be to always try as much as possible to grab a hard copy.
Yes.
Sit and read.
So if you're waiting for something to happen, you can read. You're
Okay.
waiting to see a doctor, or you're waiting, you're in the bus, or you can read.
Okay.
And a little bit at a time is what will get you to complete your book.
And selecting what you read is also important. Because if the book that you are reading does not engage you, it's not interesting, then it becomes a chore. Okay, so at this point, I would also like to appeal to Ghanaian writers, my colleague writers, that as we write, we should ensure that we tell stories that our people can relate to, that they can enjoy. Okay, if the person enjoys it, no one will tell the person to read.
Okay.
And if you enjoy reading, you'll never be bored.
Yeah.
Anyone who says they are bored doesn't read.
Okay.
Because you can get into the world of that book and have fun.
Okay. Wow. So as they say, word to the wise is not in the north, but it is enough. And we've just had some good words of advice here from two writers. They are both with the Ghana Association of Writers. Let me introduce them again. Dr. Gesika Adombire Agambila. I got it right. Yes, and he's also the vice president of the Ghana Association of Writers. And then also we had Mr. Kofi Akpabli. He is also a writer and a two-time CNN African journalist art and culture.
And there is no corner of Ghana he doesn't know.
I wanted to go into that, but we've run out of time. Maybe we'll bring you in to walk us through Ghana from the mind of the writer. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Martin.
for joining us.